Hi, this is Hank with a broken voice. Sorry.
Hi.
Oh,
I have at 1:45. Hello?
yeah, please go ahead. Sorry, my WebEx is working on my tablet again. I cannot grasp the extent of my astonishment. It's yeah.
Dave, your audio working?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay. I have to leave at 1:45.
Okay.
But I should be good up to that point. So we have Dave and Sarah. And Hank. We talked about ticket 248 last time, and we were just at the end. I'll pull that one up just a moment. And Peter.
So I think 248 is actually the hardest, most time-consuming one in the whole list, and so I would recommend that we do that one last.
Okay.
Is it one from Thomas that we
That's the handle example.
Okay.
It has by far the most comments, like more comments than every other one put together.
Okay, so basically what you're telling me is that we don't have any kind of consensus about it at this point.
It's still worth discussing because a lot of the things may be about text, but I would say let's do that one last just so we can get through some of them.
Okay,
You
all
can
right.
see the number of comments there is like at 21.
Yeah. All right, so I'll start. I did a bunch of what I call low-hanging fruit, and I hope most of these are easy to do.
I suspect all but one is easy.
So we talked about this one last time. I don't remember why we didn't commit it.
I don't remember talking about it last time, but I think I already approved it. So
Yeah, you did.
I only approved it today, so that's why I don't think we talked about it last time. I don't think it existed last week.
I think I had a couple of comments on this. Can you please check, Michael?
Maybe you had comments on the.
Yeah, here you are. Okay.
Okay.
So the first one.
So I think we went through this and last week, and we fixed the text based upon your comments.
Right, because can you check this, please? Because I said. I may refuse to issue due to. So yeah, my comment is still valid, I think, because here it says the verifier may refuse to issue the attestation result, but in fact, it might as well issue an attestation result with a negative outcome, right? So I don't understand why we need to be so precise here and rule out things that might happen as well.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you for highlighting that.
So these are two different ways that it failed.
How about the verifier may not issue a positive attestation result as a potential phrase that is ambiguous, intentionally ambiguous between refusing to issue or issuing a negative, both of which would be implementation.
Yeah, exactly.
So may not issue a positive attestation result was my suggestion, Michael.
Okay, cool.
May
not issue a positive attestation result. Because I think that accounts for both possible ways to do a protocol.
I agree. And then I had the other comment, which is not on this change. So I'm not sure that this is important in the context of this PR, but it's just the line below. I think it's say 648.
I attest that this machine is broken.
So the 648, the third way is when the verifier is unreachable. But I mean, there are many ways the verifier may fail, right? So you could have an internal server error, a depending a subsystem that doesn't, works as expected and whatever. So my comment was, I'm not sure why we need this kind of precision here that, again, rules out other possible implementation behaviors, implementation-dependent behaviors.
You're saying it's all a special case of the verifier does not respond?
Yeah, it can't respond for some reason, right? Being unreachable is one of the reasons, right? A network breakdown is one, but even internal server errors are completely
Well, that still to me
possible.
says unreachable. I would still, like, you tried to connect. It's not just that the network didn't answer.
It's really, we're really talking about availability.
Yeah, it's not available.
Being unreachable is one way in which you lose availability. There are other ways to lose availability.
Yeah,
so
totally agree. Yeah.
And remember, this is talking about the verifier role, not the machine. And so it doesn't mean that you can't ping it. It means that the verifier component itself can't be reached. So, the port is blocked, or the application module running inside that port or whatever can't be accessed because a failure was hit before it got to the processing or whatever it is. So,
But anyway, what Ned says is correct in the sense that the availability might be interrupted inside the component that implements the role, not just at the boundary. Right.
So I guess I don't read unreachable as just meaning ICMP unreachable. I mean,
sorry,
I read it as HTTP 500 error. It means DNS is down and I can't talk to it even though the machine's available. Any way in which I can't get my data through. That's what I understand by unreachable. But I think that you're reading it much more narrower. So I don't know. Unreachable or unavailable. Does that work for you?
Unavailable seems more general to me. Yes, but
I have the same interpretation as you, Michael, and I'm also fine with what you typed.
Okay, any other comments on this text?
No.
Okay. Nope, that's what we just did. Oh. I'm okay. That was weird. Okay, so this is the suggestion was that we should point at the released version of the architecture document rather than some draft. Now, this is documents actually from November of 2019, and this was from 2020. So I don't know whether that's works for everyone or is good or bad, or I don't know.
I guess the only thing to verify is the thing that the text that's pointing to this points to something that's actually in the 2019 version. Assuming that's the case, I did not check that, but assuming it is, then I think that this is fine. I think it's pointed to for the watchdog discussion.
Yeah.
And as long as and I did not check if it's in the 2019 version, but assuming it is, then I already approved this, but I did not check that.
Section 43.3. I didn't get I didn't track down the reference. I did load it to make sure it was there.
Yeah, same.
section 43.3.
Yep, it's there.
It's there. Okay, you were fast.
I was just doing the same. Yep, I'm doing exactly the same thing as what you're saying. So, yep, you're doing the same thing, and okay. It is there.
All right.
It specifically uses the watchdog timer phrase that we reference. So yes, this reference is good.
Okay, so this one tries to fix two problems. I'll just bring them up.
This one did have an issue, in my opinion.
Okay, so the first comment was that about whether this should explicitly talk about the TPM in here. Well, this is the TPM, right? The next line, I don't know if it already read it when the comment was made from Guy, but this is the next line already, that it talks about all these things, which doesn't say TPM. Okay. And then the related issue was this one, which was a complaint about that next line anyway. And what would disqualify an execution environment from being capable of claims collection? Oh, I don't know. It's a rich execution environment. I think that Guy has not understood that an execution environment.
Actually, there's a key question that he's asking in there that's related to my comment that we should discuss. So when you get into the text, you'll see as to whether the how do you know if something is capable of claims collection? Okay. It's actually a loaded question. Okay. All right. So I need somebody else to verify my understanding. Okay. My understanding is that a TPM relies on another component feeding it measurements. The TPM itself can't reach out and measure, memory or storage or anything else, right? Something else has to feed values to TPM that it then operates on.
That's correct.
That correct? Okay, so assuming that's correct, then a TPM is by definition. So now I'll scroll a little bit and read line 400 to 401, the green first. Okay. An arbitrary execution environment may not by default be capable of claims collection for a given target environment. Here's the phrase. Execution environments that are designed specifically to be capable of claims collection are referred to in this document as the testing environments. Okay, so now we get into the question of what's claims collection. My belief is claims collection is getting actual measurements. The TPM can't get measurements. Something has to feed them to the TPM, right? The TPM can't just go out and measure things. So in my definition, at least my reading of the definition, and a testing environment is the TPM plus whatever's feeding it the measurements. The collection of those become the testing environment. The TPM is itself not capable of being a attestation environment by itself. It needs something else put together with it to form an attesting environment.
So I think it depends on whether you're referring to a TCG TPM, which has a specific API, in which case I think that what Ned said and you said is correct. But my understanding is that there are other types of things that are considered a TPM or called that, maybe incorrectly, that can do their measurements themselves, particularly if they're a firmware TPM. But I take your point.
My point is previously we didn't break into this jail in the old text, but now that we're inserting TPMs, now it can, from a TCG perspective, it can be read to be wrong.
Yes, I agree with you.
So sometimes people will integrate a TPM into some other module and include additional functionality. And if that additional functionality is the ability to do a measurement, they might still call it and market it as TPM, but there's other stuff there, right?
But my point is, we're defining the term a testing environment. To me, the testing environment is the thing that does the measurement plus the thing that does all of the cryptographic stuff on it together.
So TCG would use the word root of trust for measurement, even in cases where it isn't actually a root of something. It may be somewhere along the boot path. There's a loader that is in a testing environment, has the ability to measure. They would still call that a root of trust for measurement.
So I think going back to Guy's question is what would disqualify something from being an attesting environment? Answer, if it does not have a way, if it does not do measurements and stuff. And so the TCG TPM would be an example of something that would be an answer to Guy's question. What do we put into the text here? I don't have a strong opinion on, as long as it's not misleading.
So what's the intent? Do we want to have the TPM be a testing environment or not?
Previously, we did not try to state an opinion on that, and it sounded like Guy wants us to.
So my assumption is that it is a reporting function there. So the evidence creator is the TPM. It is the testing environment, even if it is fed the claims. So maybe either we have to tinker on the how do the claims get into the testing environment, or we inverse text. Yeah, that's
right now. Look at line 393, Hank. Testing environments collect the claims. Okay, that's an active phrase. It's not a testing environments accept the values, it's collect the values. There's something active there that because it's going to have to vouch for them, right? Garbage in, garbage out, right? You can't just say you're a testing environment that accepts garbage.
Yeah, it's two things, and whether the text says it or not, I don't know. It seems like we've been around this before, but it's both. It's both collecting claims and reporting claims as evidence. So TPM can be used for part of that, but not all of it.
So what again? What's the intent here? So the secure retention and creation of evidence from it is the capabilities, I guess, that TPM provides. So it's an RTS and an RTR, but it's not an RTN.
At least the two types of environments is trying to explain that there's an isolation boundary of some sort between the attesting environment and the target environment, such the target environment can't lie and have the attesting environment vouch for it, right? Yeah. And so, example, if the target environment can feed to the attesting environment, here's anything that you like, and the testing environment does no measurements, it just accepts the claims from the target, signs them, and sends them off, then the isolation boundary has no value.
That is not true, because we have the evidence generation as the isolation function, which is of course of value and should be most definitely separated from the target environment. And I think that's actually the point. Not the claim. The claims collection might not even be the exact distinguishing feature here, but it's the evidence generation.
I don't understand what the point is of separating evidence generation from the values if the values can be completely arbitrary and spoofed.
Yeah, you're basically then by principle contesting that the TPM is in principle capable of generating evidence. Yeah, is that
the
correct?
TCG TPM is incapable of submitting evidence unless it has a way of having trust in that. So you put it together with a component that feeds it correct value. So for example, in boot, ROM feeds it values, and you trust the ROM plus the TPM together, and the ROM plus the TPM together is the first layer of testing environment.
Yeah, then this has to be expressed that the capability of claims collection might be another secure environment. I guess that's the point then. So I'm just trying to understand.
From this text, it's treated as if it's the same environment. There's just two modules inside the environment as to the way that you've implemented it, right? But all this only comes up if we have to talk about TCG TPMs, which the old text did not.
So the assumption is that the what Ned highlighted as the RGM is external, but somehow part of the testing environment and in composite. So that's the okay. Effectively, it's two isolated environments that talk to each other really, really well. But I guess
I agree with that.
but I guess.
But the term a testing environment, I claim, is when we use the term a testing environment in this document, it's referring to that combination of those two pieces. Mm-hmm. That trying to break down inside of a testing environment is not central to this section, unless you're trying to explain how typical TCG TPMs work.
So the remaining question is, what this implicit information, this assumption, is that inferable by a common reader or not? And I'm afraid it is not.
Yeah. I agree. I think that's what Guy's pointing out.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Yeah. So we're providing examples for illustrative purposes that aren't good examples because it's kind of a new concept in a sense.
So I suggest I propose that we revert that line that I wrote that added TPM, and then come back to the text and see if the other comment is still if the other fix is still relevant.
Okay, before you go on, Michael, you can see my point number 1 is just some grammar fixes that need to be made.
Is it? I just wasn't sure if the grammar fix still needed to be fixed after I reverted it. Okay, so
no, in your green text, you have a environments plural and an elements plural.
So testing, but typically are in a trusted execution environment, and that should be singular. Is that what you think?
You either make them all be plural or they'll all be singular. I guess it depends on whether you think BIOS firmware is singular or plural.
But I think
yeah, and I actually didn't understand this "and" here.
Maybe it should be "or."
Typically in, that's what I thought, and I changed it to "or."
I think you're right.
So, I think this.
And maybe to the TPM question, maybe we relax the word "typically" and we change it to be just "for example," because TPMs are pretty typical.
But it's the word "places" is actually a sort of imprecise reference to a domain-isolated environment, and so the examples that we're giving are examples of domain isolation more than they are examples of attesting environments that meet the definition of this document. Because a TE doesn't have attestation in it necessarily, right? I mean, it could just be anything. But
So Ned, you're making me think about the word "places" here. If you change the word "places," then inserting TPMs might be doable if we use the right phrase here. I mean, so for example, there's no limit to a requirement on the I don't know, types of. I'm going to feel free to wordsmith on the fly here on the types of hardware or firmware environments that can be used to implement a testing environment, something like that.
There you go. Yeah, that's better.
If you talk about things used to implement it, then of course a TCG TPM can be used to implement it. Right? You're just not saying it is one.
Right. Exactly.
Can be used to implement a testing environments.
Is that precluding that the testing environment can be just a software environment?
No.
Trusted
execution environment.
In some sense, firmware is software, right?
Yeah. I think there's an implication there that it's only hardware or firmware.
Okay, you're right. Hardware or software. How about hardware or software?
Because
especially in layer attestation, you're right. The upper layers are typically just software, and the lower layers are hardware or firmware. Or something.
Yeah. So like a software TPM in running in a virtual machine guest is been done.
Right. Michael, an attesting environment. For example, now you can put that stuff back in there. A TEE, an embedded secure element, a TPM, whatever the old phrase was that was in red, it would be fine now.
I kind of liked it plural at one point as I thought about
That's fine too. And if you make them all be plural.
Yeah, that's what I did. I made them all trusted execution environments, embedded secure elements, and then I agree. BIOS firmware is probably plural.
But you can add TPM back in there now that we've said that can be used to implement.
Okay, what order do you want it in?
Don't care.
To make it plural, so it'd be trusted platform modules.
So actually, if you're going to do it all plural, Michael, then the stuff inside parentheses should also be pluralized, like TEEs, TPMs, ESEs. Okay, I'm fine with it now.
Is it common in the English tongue to pluralize an acronym because the execution environment?
I wasn't going to do that, but
yeah, it's included, right? It's an acronym.
It is common. To answer your question, but
unwise, I think. But
I don't know.
Annoying, but common.
Yeah, I don't know what the right answer is.
I think if you don't, the RFC editor will.
Yeah, I think they will. I mean, yeah, okay, whatever. Okay.
All right, so now let's consider these sentences here.
So it's the 401 that's really Guy's question is, what does it mean to be not capable of claims collection? And do we want to say more there? Because I think, Hank, he made the same point that, well, I didn't read that into the text kind of thing, and so how do we get that concept across? Well, maybe, do we think it's important to get that concept across? And if so, then how do we do it?
Yeah, so I added the word specifically.
So I think his question is, what does it mean to be capable of claims collection? And this is, do we think we need to call out this notion of, for example, I'm make something up here. For example, if a component by itself needs, and I'm not suggesting text, I'm trying to think out loud here. If a component needs another component to send it values, then the sending component and the receiving component together can form in a testing environment. So that's kind of the concept. I don't know how to phrase that.
Yeah, we don't have to deal with that here today. We can each think something up and make comments for next time.
I'm fine with that. That's a good suggestion, Hank.
All right, so we're going to leave this open for now.
Well, but I thought you said this one in the conversation doesn't address two different issues, Michael?
Yeah, so you want me to close one issue?
Yeah.
Close one.
Yeah, close one.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this. You want me to commit this? I'm going to delete the branch. Now,
yeah, that's the one we want to keep open.
This is the one we want to keep open.
Yeah, reopen this one, leave the other one closed.
Okay, what does it mean to be capable? Okay, and then this one's closed, so we're good with that. Okay, next one. 184 was asking. This is specifically in this is text from the use case about biometric authentication. And Hank proposed different text, and I'll jump to that. Okay, jumping to it.
I approved, although I think it's better if you delete the word, but I'm okay either way.
Hank?
That is I think that's the Department of Redundancy. Relying party outputs its attestation results are intended to be, that's the point, to be easy to be digested, easy digestible. That is why I sometimes throw it in when it seems appropriate. I thought it was quite appropriate here, but I'm not clinging at it. But I like it here, to be honest.
I can live with it either way. I just didn't understand what it added, so I don't know what others think. Which way is more readable to people?
Well, maybe you want to put the word easily.
Easily digestible, yeah, yeah. If that's helping.
Isn't that a property of how you design the protocol rather than the use case?
No, attestation results are intended to be that, in contrast to the otherwise esoteric evidence.
But this isn't talking about evidence that is easily digestible. This is saying the authentication data is easily digestible.
Yeah, okay, that's true. Okay.
So we're going to remove the word digestible.
And because you're trying to add, I claim that you're trying to add attestation in a thought experiment case sense. You're trying to add attestation to a biometric authentication case, and the biometric authentication case passes authentication data. Whether it's easy digestible or not is kind of the baseline. I don't know if you add attestation when it's not easily digestible. It's the same problem.
Right. So I thought that in some cases that what we're really getting is not an attestation as to the biometric data, but as to the biometric collection mechanism.
Correct. That's exactly what the text. If you expand upwards, everybody else will see that. Michael, you're correct.
There. So that's why I'm saying that the discussion about whether it's easy to digest is irrelevant because there.
It was a reflexive addition when I was going there.
It's okay. The rest of the stuff is a big improvement. So thank you. This is a good fix.
Okay.
I think here the original text was mine. I agree with the filer's points. That it needs some wordsmithing, so thank you to whoever it is that put one together here. I had some additional wordsmiths on the proposed text, but it's an improvement. So all good except for the extended line 258. All the other changes above that I think are great. Here, what I didn't like is it seems to imply that the only thing we're talking about is cases we have a triggering sensor that causes an action. And the point is actions can be caused by many different things. It could be a triggering sensor. It could be a human pressing a button. It could be malware. We hope not. We hope it could be a policy change because some policy has changed. It has resulted in the best state now being different from what it was before. It could be a time of day because you have a policy that says every day at 5 p.m. do something and so on. So we need to say something that does not imply that there's necessarily a triggering sensor that's causing the action. And so I wanted to be less specific here in line 258.
That's from the context coming from Thomas. I try to please both sides, and yeah, this is making it a little bit more specific. Thomas,
Yeah.
what was your initial point here? How could that be generalized more like Dave likes?
I wanted more precision in this case, and that was my suggestion. But I'm happy if we stay vague here. It seems to be good.
This is a use case, so you expect to have some use case specific context.
Latched onto that and made it a little bit more about the picture that was building in Thomas's mind when he was reading it. So because then it's an actual use case.
Yeah.
So I'm not against being relatively arbitrary specific here because it's just a use case.
So can you expand downward and remind us what it is that's the definition of the attester here? A tester is a device or application wishing to control physical equipment. Okay. So you just need to make it be consistent with that because a device or application, a sensor is a device, but not an application, but this could be either of them. A policy engine would be an application, a human interface application, the human sitting in front of it would be an application. So we just need to accomplish making sure that it covers a device or application.
Right. So I'm taking that to mean that.
How about just changing the requester and the triggering sensor to be the device or application? Or we have to say it needs a word in front of that. The requesting device or application.
And or application.
I would say or, but and or is not incorrect. It's just harder to read, but.
And I'm deleting.
I claim if you compromise, say, the OS underneath the application is also compromised. That's what I mean from a security analysis standpoint.
Or application, and how is the word triggering sensor?
You just delete those three words.
Okay. Yeah, no, I agree. So the distinction to my mind between device or application is that you could have a valve which is fairly sophisticated that pays attention to, circumstances that it sees maybe multicast and acts on its own. But you can also have this application which is this hybrid of things, many things, right? Which includes operating systems and whatever. Obviously, the device is an operating system too, but the point is it may just be an application.
So, since this is trying to be a infrastructure control use case, you can use terminology that's common, and sensors and controllers actuators are common sort of terminology.
Right, but sensors don't cause actuator changes. A control loop of some sort does. And so the sensors get fed into some control loop, which may be on the same device as the sensor, maybe on the same device as the actuator, or more typically it's on a different device, even if it's in the same physical enclosure.
Right, but I'm not saying that this section is trying to prescribe a particular architecture for integrating attestation.
Right.
So any of the nodes that could appear in a control network could be an attesting node.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah. And we're actually not being very specific about where the relying party is.
Well, if you scroll down, we are in this particular example.
A device or application. So again, we see it's anything.
That's the thing that's connected to the physical equipment. So in this case, the relying party is not, a cloud service or something like that. It's not, the human's phone, the human's workstation, or the human's, HMI device that's a touch panel thing next to some machinery. It's the thing that's actually is the machinery.
Right. Right. All right. Am I going to commit this?
I'm okay with it now.
Yep.
Well, on grammar fix, now that you've changed it to be an or, at the bottom of 258 green where it says have not at the beginning, it should be has not. Now that it's singular. And device or application has not been compromised. So previously it was an and, so now it's an or, so it has. Okay, now it's good.
Okay, so I'm going to have to go. I have to take a kid to orthodontist. I think we're through all of this.
Yep, I think the only one left is the hard
drive if you want to look through some other tickets or issues.
I guess I will leave that to others. So, Michael, do you have a preference? So we have the one pull request that I claim is hard, meaning it's going to be time consuming for us to talk about. Do you want to be there for that? In other words, I suspect that we're not going to finish it in 15 minutes and that it's going to require changes by next week anyway. So the question is, do you want us to discuss that without you?
Yes, go ahead.
Do you want us to discuss other tickets?
Please go ahead and discuss this without me. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'll stop sharing at this point.
Right. Does somebody else want to share?
Are you able to share this?
I'm willing to, but if somebody else wants to, I would be happy for somebody else to do it.
If you're a usual suspect, I'm fine.
All right, I will share. Let me bring it up, and I'll share my screen.
Okay.
How do we want to deal with the remaining 39 issues?
That's the other topic that I think would be useful to discuss because it's been, I picked two of them, or in this case, Michael took a couple. So we could divvy them up, or we could say who actually has time to take some next week. So I guess, Ned, do you want to spend some time talking about that on the call or not?
Yeah, just, a couple of minutes. Maybe.
Okay. Do you want to do that now, or because the discussion on this last one, I predict will expand to fill all available time. So we can do it.
Yeah.
We can either
let's take a couple minutes right now. Just what do we think? Should we just?
So I'm going to share my screen, and I will go to the. Tell me when I'm actually sharing my screen here. Can people see a screen?
Yeah.
Okay, so here's a list of issues. Go ahead, Ned, if you want to lead this discussion.
Yeah, so it looks like there's, 39 or so open issues. It seems like it keeps getting larger when we get close to closing them. And so I think people have been sort of cherry picking the ones that they want to go work on. And I don't know that we're making progress on everything. So I don't know if another approach is needed, but it would be great if we could somehow ensure that every one of them has an owner. We're not just ignoring things. So whether we volunteer or make assignments, I don't know.
So right now I'm going to guess that the assignee person is the current owner, And so the ones of potential concern are the ones that have nobody's icon there. And so it looks like maybe half of them might have an owner. Let me see the second page, see what this one looks like. Okay.
I think that, okay.
And of course, some of these are already labeled as won't fix, and so those have already been done. They're just not closed per se because they require an email response. So if we ignore maybe minus label won't fix. Okay, now we're at 35. Okay. Oh, I guess that one I need to change to be won't fix. So we have consistent labels. Okay, but still, we have, I'd say probably half overall we have assigned. Yeah, what do you think? Because I know Hank's got some, William has some, and we have, that one is Thomas, because I think Thomas, you filed it, right? Lawrence, maybe those are ones that Lawrence filed. See if he has a proposal. Michael.
Yeah, is the person that files it assigned? Is
for some of them, because some of them were filed like Guy, none of them are assigned to Guy. Guy did a review, but he's not doing text, and so I don't think that we have to necessarily expect a filer to have to generate text for it. They're welcome to. So like, I love it if Thomas has suggestions, but if Guy or somebody else, anybody should be able to submit issues without being willing to or claiming to know what the fix is. So
right, and the assignee is the one who's coming up with the fix, right?
Yes, and so it looks like for the most part, the ones that were previously assigned to Michael and me, there's two more assigned to Michael. Most of those have already been acted on and merged. I think those two are still in progress from Michael, but I could probably take another couple.
Yeah, I think I only have one assigned to me at present.
Is there one you want to sign up for, Ned?
I haven't looked at them.
Yeah. Okay.
Well,
how do you want
to? If I have a quota, I can go. I mean, if it's like everybody take 5 or something, I can go find 4 more.
Okay.
Yeah, unless we define a authority right now that assigns, we will again pick up what we like. But we, I think, should commit to we pick some up, and then we can see next time and see that there's no response items have to be responded by and for. And yeah, so I guess one round of please pick some up is okay for a week, but next week we will then start pushing items to participants.
Yeah, if we say everybody.
The method that I was using to cherry pick things is I would personally, I would typically look at the rows that have nothing on here, meaning not assigned and no comments, which means maybe nobody's looked at it yet. And so I would try to pick those first for the ones that I've been doing. They've been typically this ones where nobody's commented on them yet, just because I want to make some progress and say, well, somebody else is commenting on that one. I'll look at the ones that nobody's looked at yet. So I try to pick up ones that nobody else has. So.
Okay, so let's say, everybody make sure you have at least 5, and then if you want the best pick, then do it early.
Okay. Anything else, Ned, on this?
No.
Okay. Should I go back to the issue or what?
Yeah.
Ned, I have one question. Who's everybody? Because is there 7 people on this list, or is
of which only 5 are on the official editors list? And so
at least the editors, the people on the editors list, and about if somebody else wants to.
Okay, cool.
Feels passionate about something, we're fine.
So it sounds like the answer is anybody whose name is listed as an editor is expected to do it. Anybody else is, of course, welcome to do it, and it will be thanked profusely, but it's not expected to. But it will be bonus points that can be cashed in for later credits, or whatever.
Cool.
All right, are we ready to talk about this one?
Yep.
Okay. And I do not expect us to be able to finish this one, but we can at least start on this one and maybe resolve some of the comments and merge some things. So by merge some things, I mean, collapse some of these by committing some suggestions. So, all right. So I had one comment that appears in here twice. Once here, and then once, I'm just going to jump down to wherever it was. So someplace, passport, next time passport appears in here. So between the top, okay, here. So this sentence, the example in such and such illustrates a handle-based interaction using the passport topology model. This is example 3. Example 1 has a sentence that starts like that. Example 2 has a sentence that starts like that. Example 3, that sentence occurs like a couple paragraphs down. And all the stuff at the beginning here is not something about this example, it's about talking about handles. Okay. Now, this here, you see this is a backwards reference to freshness, and so I'm just going to expand down freshness here for a second, because there's a couple lines that I pointed to. Okay, you can see this section about clocks, there's a section about nonces, not section, but paragraph, I should say. And then here, for these lines right here, I'm just going to read this out loud so you can understand my context. This is back in the freshness section. In another setup where all roles share the same broadcast channel, the nonce-based approach may be used to anchor all parties to the same relative timeline without requiring synchronized clocks by having a central entity emit nonces at regular entities and have the current nonce included in the produced evidence or attestation result. Okay. So I claim that that is a kind of obscure reference to the notion of a handle distributor. Other people have the same impression that that's what that text is actually referring to?
Yep.
Okay. So now with that as the context, I can now go back down here. So I claim that the first couple of these green paragraphs here, up until that sentence that was this one, everything above this line right here is not about the example, it's about handle distributors. And so I claim that the text all the way down to green 1454 should actually be merged back into that previous one, which never used the term handle distributor. It didn't even use the term handle, it used nonces for this case. And so it's a little bit of a disconnect. And so I would take the green text here and merge it back and replace that previous paragraph that I read.
Interesting.
Right now it comes across as saying, in one case, we have something that calls it nonces, and then we have the longer exposition that doesn't call it nonces, it calls it handles, and it's a little bit of a cognitive disconnect.
Yeah, but freshness is in the body, this is the appendix. So what you're proposing, as I understood you correctly, is to move something to the more official body now.
Yes.
Okay,
that is what I'm proposing.
I didn't want to be intrusive. That is why it's down there. There was no agreement to make this official body content, and that I'm happy to see that.
Okay.
But I would not have dared.
I think I'm more and more of a fan of it now, right? Originally we did it because it hadn't been reviewed and stuff. Now that we're actually expanding, because you can see previously in the red text, it starts off with the stuff about this, well, maybe not. The red text was also bad, so never mind. I'm meaning bad in the sense of the same point about talking about handle distributors.
So in that paragraph you quoted earlier, why are we using the word nonce there if we meant handle?
That is exactly my point, or at least part of my point.
It's outdated.
It is outdated, exactly. And so if we update this paragraph here, how would we update it? Well, we'd probably update it with text that's actually down here now.
So do you want to do that, or shall Thomas and I do that?
I have no preference, but it is a little bit tied in. We could also say it's part of a different PR. That's okay too. I'm just saying 2 of my comments were actually about that, as I'm realizing, this section would be more consistent if it didn't have to give the handle distributor background, and we kind of already gave it right here without even using those terms. So I would be fine making this be more blessed now by moving it back here, to your point, I think.
Works for me.
Yeah, Thomas, do you want Dave to have the first step at this? Or do you
If you want me to, I can just make part of that change, and then this can be rebased to only be about the example stuff. If all I do is because my stuff will of course not touch the example section, it will only touch this paragraph, but it would touch it with text that you put in green down here.
Yeah.
Because I can do that for next week if that's what people would prefer.
I'm super happy.
Okay.
Okay.
Then because that's 2 of my comments, and so I'm just going to leave these comments in here, and then we can delete them once it's rebased.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. I'm going to, you can see here the freshness section, so I'll call them nonces. That's what I was just explaining was this one. So. Okay. All right. All right. So now we get into one of the technical points. So this one I commented on last time. This one is actually going to be easier if I cover things slightly out of order. In other words, if I cover a second comment later on and then come back to this one will be easier, I think, to discuss.
Okay.
And just because we only have 5 minutes, so I'm going to go on to an easier one. And if we get back to this one, that's great. Let's skip down to one in particular, just because I know we can talk about it in the interest of time here. Okay. So one of the things that we've used in one of the documentation rules that we've used in the example section so far is that in the diagrams, we only put times that are actually used either in a message, like here, where it's conveyed, like here, time VG is in there, right? Or in an inequality in the text, like, I don't know, where was the inequalities in the text, for example? I'm looking for one of them here. There's several of them in here. Like where the relying party does a test and accepts it if it's within a particular thing. I'm looking for one of the pieces of text just to point out. And I'm probably going to pull in one. Okay, here. Here, you know, in the red text, I'm just going to use this one. The red text, the relying party accepts it if this inequality is true. Okay, and so, you know, you can see this one references time HR and time EG and so on. So then putting those on the labels on the diagram is clear because you can't understand this inequality without understanding what point in the diagram it is. Okay. So one of the things in the green text that does not follow that rule is this one. Time HT is labeled there where it never appears in a message or in any text that's an inequality. It is used here, okay, but no place else uses that convention that just says something is transmitted at a particular time. So if you look at when, like, evidence is transmitted, right, or sorry, any of the other messages in any of these, unless they're used, like here, time EG was used right here, right? And so, but if time EG is not used, then of course, then it would not be labeled on here. You just see the line coming out. And so this one is pure editorial, but please follow this because we followed it every place else is that if you remove all references to something between contents and inequalities, then we should remove the label here too. And so that applies, I think, to this addition of time HT. It either needs to be used in something, which is one of those previous comments that I said I was going to come back to, or it should not appear in here. So, well, that is the prerequisite.
I'm not sure if that's. I'm not sure if that's always technically correct, but I can see the use for homogeneity, like a unification of layout. I'm not sure if it's applicable.
Okay, so here's where the crux of so that is the prerequisite. This is the crux of the thing, and if we run out of time because we've only got 2 minutes here, the receiver, like relying party. Let me talk about this from the relying party, right? Let's say that we're talking about the case where the relying party is using handles to do its freshness check at the relying party. Okay. The relying party or the receiver has no clue when time HT is, unless time HT is in a message. Well, time HT is not in any message. And so there's no way for the receiver to use the delta time HR minus HT for anything. And so the overlap phase can't be tested at the receiver based on this inequality, or sorry, based on this delta, because those two things are from unrelated clocks, right? Subtracting things from unrelated clocks gives you garbage.
Thomas?
Correct, but I would expect this to be computed as part of you, calibrating the network, the communication channel, and so be distributed as a configuration parameter to all the participants. That's what it is for me.
So I'm saying right now, I can't even understand what this is talking about because it's subtracting two clocks that are unrelated, meaning may have since there's no synchronized clocks or whatever, this could be time since boot. So time since boot on one entity minus time since boot on a different device is a unusable number.
No, basically, this is the latency of the network, right? And assuming worst conditions, congestion, and so on.
Time is in a particular entity's clock. So time HR is the local clock time at the receiver, and time HT is the local clock time at the transmitter. That's what those are defined as.
Yeah, and if you assume a God view from
and
above,
subtracting two local clocks from different entities that are not synchronized gives you garbage.
Exactly. So, but there's still an effective reality of physics that is there. So, and this is the calibration what Thomas, I think, was talking about.
Yeah, I need to express that thing. I don't know. Maybe that is a confusing way to express that concept, but
the old equation or the old inequality here is one that I completely understand. The old one, the text is saying that the way that things work is there's no race conditions, right? The receiver always keeps the current epoch number or the current epoch handle plus the previous epoch handle. The transmitter always uses the current one. The receiver always accepts both the current and the previous. Right? That's how it was previously described. And so you have no race conditions because you always retain 2 on the receiver side and use latest on the sending side. And so that's where this inequality came from, which only subtracts things on the same entity, right? So HR is on the same entity. Right. So you subtract old and new, new minus old. And on the other side, new minus old, so you just have the time deltas. And so you can play games with, you can do correct, subtractions based on deltas. So this one I understood, but this one seems to imply you only keep the current one and you use propagation delay or something like that. And I didn't understand that because that sounded like it was much more fragile, as opposed to just keeping 2 epochs, so current plus previous.
Yeah, that computation I didn't understand. So, well, maybe I need to go back and think further about this.
So we're over time. I'm fine. I did not expect us to get that far through this, but I at least wanted to communicate I understand in terms, because the whole point of this, the issue was improved clarity, right? Improved clarity of the handle example. Now, it could be that wasn't clear before. I don't dispute that, right? But I'd say the intent of the previous text, as I understood it, was the receiver keeps the current epoch plus the last epoch, and so it doesn't matter what the propagated delay is in that implementation. I mean, this is just an example, right? So you can pick any particular implementation, right? But this one was intended to be independent of prop delay. Doesn't matter whether it's going across a satellite, so it's absolutely huge, or it could be very tiny because it's co-located or whatever. It doesn't matter because prop delay doesn't figure into here. Just current plus previous, or current and previous to store. So anyway, think about that for next week. So.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. I'm going to stop sharing my screen since we're over time.
Cool.
All right. But yeah, thanks for putting this together. And I will liberally take the appropriate text and move it back into in another section in the PR. So for next time.
Fantastic. Thank you.
All right. Cool.
Cheers.
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.